Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
The atoms in your left hand probably came from a different star than your right hand.
It is our basic human right to be fucked up.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Occultae Veritatis.
Hello and welcome to Occultae Veritatis podcast. I am Sage Murray.
Leon Filger.
Ood Gallifrey.
And joining us again in the studio,
it's Tira. Woo-hoo. And podcast baby Valeria's in the house. We'll call her Val. I name my baby after Val. Hail Val.
Hail Val.
And my D&D character.
Peace be upon her.
Today on Occultae Veritatis podcast, I'll be delving into the scary and weird cult that R&B star R. Kelly seems to be running.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, it's time for What's Your Poison?
What's your poison?
So, what's your poison?
So, what's your poison?
Today we are drinking, I don't know, I picked it up and it sounded so redundant that I had to buy it. British Brown Ale by Churchill Brewing Company.
Oh, that's from Swift Current?
Yeah? Oh, interesting.
Saskatchewan Brewing.
It says on the side that life was not made to be sipped, but to be taken by the pintful. And there's no better beer than a English Brown Ale. Alrighty.
Perfect.
So pass it around.
0% chance I'm going to like it.
Let's see.
That one, you wiener.
Oh, I'll get it.
God damn it.
Yeah.
Ooh, nice pop. I like this beer.
It is very nice.
It's not usually, I don't usually like brown ales, but this one is less, malty, I guess. It's definitely a sipping beer. It's not like a hammering beer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of ironic that, they have on the side that life was not meant to be sipped when their beer is a very good sipping beer.
Yeah, it's very rich, so it's definitely a sipping beer for me.
Yeah. I don't know. You're kind of saying, don't enjoy our beer. Take it, a whole bunch.
Just hammer it.
Yeah. Which is an insult, because I like the flavor, and I think it should be sipped.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
It's so cold.
It is really cold.
I could hammer it.
Yeah, it is, I likely will hammer it. I can't stop.
Did it stand up to your expectations, Leon?
I'm only half a sip in, and I'm not really digging it too much.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to give this one... I don't like it as much as the Loki. I think if I were to buy another pack, I think I'd buy more Loki. So I'm going to give British Brown Ale a 7 out of 10.
I'll give it a 6.5.
I give it a 3.
Oh.
Yeah. What about you?
I'm fine with the 7. It's quite nice.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, and it's going to be good lube for the R. Kelly tale.
Oh, my God.
Kitty Jones and Asante McGee both say they had relationships with R. Kelly. Asante says she dated him from 2014 to 2016 and lived in his home for a month. Kitty says she started dating the singer back in June 2011. She thought they were in love and in a monogamous relationship. She gave up her job as a DJ, says she moved into his Atlanta home in November 2011 and spent 2 years there. But Kitty says the relationship became violent within weeks of her arrival. She shared details of her time with R. Kelly in her book, I Was Somebody Before This. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
What a title, Kitty. What a title.
Thank you.
So you were in that home for 2 years.
Yes.
Within 3 weeks, he became physically abusive?
I had confronted him about a videotape that I had saw, and it was a girl that he had introduced me to.
Just to be clear, he went to court on child pornography charges for a sex tape he was in. The prosecutors alleged he was having sex with a 14-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
He was acquitted because the jury said, we can't identify that woman, and so we don't know whether she was 14. So they didn't think they could prove it was a child
Right.
And
right.
you know this girl, and
he introduced me to her. And this is 2011, so years had gone by, and this person's an older woman now. But when I did the math compared to how old she was when he introduced her to me, it landed on 14.
So you believe he was guilty of that charge?
Yes, and I confronted him about it, and that's when the first time he abused me.
I know you say he became extremely controlling.
Yes.
How so?
I had to wear sweatpants. I had to stand up when he would walk in a room. I did have to be on his phone plan. I know that he would put a lot of his girlfriends on his phone plan so he can control, like, who you're talking to, how often you talk to your family, what you're texting, things like that.
Is it true he controlled things as little as you walking out of a room, you going to use the bathroom, you wanting to eat?
Yes.
How? What would you have to do?
You would have to send a text message to one of his runners, just asking, like, you know, if you can go to the restroom, and then they'll relay the information to him, because you weren't, like, free to walk throughout the house.
You had to ask permission to go use the bathroom?
Yes. Yes.
And he would use food, you claim, as a punishment.
Right. When I met him, I was about 130 pounds. When I left 2 years later, I was 107 pounds.
Now, Asante, did you have a similar experience with him?
I did. When I first met him back in 2013 during the Black Panties tour, he was this wonderful guy. He always made you laugh. You never saw anything wrong with him. Flying back and forth for 2 years, going to different shows, hanging out with him. He was just always this funny guy. And it was the summer of 2016, the beginning of the buffet tour. He pretty much put me on the bus from city to city back in Dallas, Texas, and I ended up in Oklahoma. And from Oklahoma, I ended up in Atlanta.
But did he control you in the way he controlled Kitty?
He controlled me once I moved in.
How so? Can you give us examples?
For example, when I was just flying in back and forth, he would send me texts. And for instance, I want to say Easter of 2015, I went to Chicago and I sat in the hotel for like 3 days before even having contact with him. And the day when I was about to leave, he just texted me out the blue and said, come to the studio. And I caught an Uber to the studio. I arrived there like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I told him I'm here. And he had his assistant put me in a Sprinter, which is a traveling van. I sat there from like 11 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock that night.
But what about, did you have to ask permission to go to the bathroom and get food and leave a room?
Yes, when I was on the Sprinter, I had to use the restroom, and I texted him, Daddy, I need to use the restroom. No
Daddy?
response. Yes, we were required to call him Daddy.
Required to?
Yes, he told us to call him Daddy. You would address him as Daddy.
And if you didn't, you were...
Yeah, you would get in trouble if you didn't.
Or slapped.
How many women you were there most recently, so how many women are in this house?
At the time when I was there, it was a total of 4 of us.
So, as you know, R. Kelly is like a big-time American singer, songwriter, record producer, and he even used to play basketball professionally, which is weird.
I never knew that.
Yeah. He was born in Chicago, began performing in the late 1980s, and his solo album in 1993 was called 12 Play. He's best known for a bunch of major hits like I Believe I Can Fly, Gotham City, Ignition Remix.
Yeah. And I'll be able to play exactly 4.5 seconds of each of those for you guys.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, yes.
And he's also known for the hip opera Trapped in the Closet, which is hilarious.
She said her husband was coming up the stairs. Shh, quiet. Hurry up and get in the closet. She said, don't you make a sound or some shit is going down.
I know, it's such a small story to tell.
Yeah.
Like, you think a hip-hop opera would have all kinds of drama and intrigue and death, but it's just a dude in a closet.
Yeah, and it's bad. And they made a South Park episode about it with the Scientology one.
Yeah, and how is he so culturally deaf that, he didn't know what, coming in and out of a closet meant? And then he got mad at the reaction afterwards?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, he's not the brightest bulb. In 1994, he remixed an album for Aliyah, which was called Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, which will come back later.
Foreshadowing.
Right. In 1996, he was nominated for a Grammy for writing a song by Michael Jackson called You Are Not Alone. And he's collaborated with like Jay-Z, Nas, P. Diddy, and Notorious B.I.G. The Recording Industry Association of America has recognized him as one of the best-selling music artists in the United States with 40 million albums sold.
Jesus.
As well as being only the 5th black artist to crack the top 50. A couple scandals before we kind of get into the meat of the cult. So he had an illegal marriage. R. Kelly was 27, and he married a 15-year-old singer named Aaliyah.
Jesus.
They were illegally married in a secret wedding ceremony, on August 31st, 1994.
A lot of people argue, like, oh, there's lots of mature 15-year-olds out there, but, like...
15 is a child!
Yes, and, like, if you haven't been out there and you haven't been, handling adult shit, like, you aren't really equipped to have an equal relationship with another adult.
Well, and he was 27. Like, how old are you? He was, like, a couple years younger than you.
Yeah, and, like, if I went after a 15-year-old right now, like, it would be 100% abusive, because I have much more of the adult world figured out, and I can manipulate her all the more, which is...
Well, and she was, like, his protege. Like, she was an up-and-coming singer, and he totally...
even worse.
Yeah, like, it's my opinion that he totally abused that relation, like, that power dynamic.
Yeah.
Into having a 15-year-old marry him.
And the protege has, like, an implication of, keep on keeping on or get out.
Yeah, exactly. His tour manager, whose name is Demetrius Smith, said in 2008 that he basically helped to facilitate the wedding by getting ID for Aaliyah, saying that she was 18. So that's super illegal.
Yeah, so just straight up fraud.
Yeah, exactly.
Love man hip-hop star R. Kelly did indeed marry his protege, the 15-year-old singer Aaliyah Houghton. Kelly stated his age as 27, 2 years older than he previously claimed to be, and Aaliyah produced 2 pieces of ID that appeared to show her to be 18. But Aaliyah's publicists continue to insist that she's 15. The Budweiser company dropped her from its Superfest tour because it felt she was too young to be on the road, and most convincingly, the Detroit High School of the Performing Arts acknowledged that Aaliyah is in fact a 10th grade student there. As it happens, Aaliyah popped up on a New York City TV show called Video Music Box recently and had this to say.
You know I don't tell my age, it's a secret. But
it's only a number.
I'll give you a hint though. my birthday, Monday's my birthday, and it's going to be a very sweet birthday. So hint, hint. Figure it out. It's going to be a very, very sweet birthday.
And of course, there was some controversy going on, so I'm going to cut to the chase and we're going to get it off. I know everybody asked it. What is the situation? Because we don't know.
Okay, we'll let you know. To let you know. No. But no, really, I want to let everybody know that it's not true. I'm Aaliyah, not Aaliyah Kelly. And it's just, it's not true. But I think, hey, this comes with the territory. When you're in this business, people are going to talk. So I just ignore it.
All right, you heard it right from her mouth. You didn't have to hear from nobody else, no radio stations, not me. You heard it right from her. That's it. It's Aaliyah. That's it.
Don't even have a boyfriend.
Aaliyah and R. Kelly had been introduced by Aaliyah's uncle 3 years before the marriage when she was 12.
Jesus.
Yeah. So he was going after basically a 12-year-old.
And it's interesting that he had to commit fraud to do it, because in most of the states, you can get married at that age as long as you have your parents' permission. So that probably means that he was going against the wishes of the parents.
Yeah. Well, like, I'm a marriage commissioner in Saskatchewan, and I can marry 15-year-olds as long as I've never had to do it in, like, the 2 years that almost 3 years that I've been doing this.
Would you do it?
I don't know. I don't know if I'd want my signature on that marriage.
Yeah. Just in case, like, even just for the headache of being called to the court case afterwards.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
if some shit happens.
Yeah, like, I don't think I
5 years away from their brains being fully formed. So
I could see if like, one of them was on their deathbed from cancer and their dying wish was to get married just before they go. That would be one where you could make an exception.
Yeah, I would make an exception for that. But if it's just like 2 grade 10 kids that are like, hey, let's get married, hooray. Yeah. I don't think I'd do that.
Like, I remember being 15. I sure as fuck thought I had things figured out, and I fucking didn't. So.
No. Like, I'm 31, and I still don't have things figured out. Yeah. In 1995, the marriage was annulled, basically because Aaliyah's family was like, this is gross.
Yeah.
But then R. Kelly and Aaliyah have been, like, denying their marriage for the whole time, even though in 1997, Aaliyah filed a lawsuit to have the marriage records all expunged. So, like, completely wiped out.
Yeah, and that's a common tactic amongst abusers, is to tell the abusee to just tell other people that they're just friends or it's not a real relationship until they're of legal age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so gross.
Yeah.
Next there were allegations of a sex tape. So in 2002, there was a video that kind of came up that allegedly showed R. Kelly engaging in sex with and urinating on an underage girl.
Yeah.
Jesus. So that's where all that "I'll piss on you" stuff comes from.
As you do.
Yeah. And not that there's anything wrong with that.
No kink shaming, but
it's just that a very small percentage of the population is into that. And I'm willing to bet that 15-year-old was pressured into that rather than she was one of the small percentage of people that were into that.
Yeah.
More importantly, she was 15 years old.
Yes.
The news surfaced just as R. Kelly was about to perform at the opening ceremony of the 2002 Olympics.
Oh, boy.
So R. Kelly obviously denied the allegations, but he was indicted on 21 counts of child pornography because that girl was underage.
And that's for the amount of times they've had sex, like one for every sexual act kind of thing?
Yeah. There was a search of his house in Florida, and during the search, they found 12 images of an alleged underage girl on a digital camera, which was wrapped up in a towel stuffed in his duffel bag, which allegedly depicted Kelly, I quote, involved in sexual conduct with the female minor.
And you can tell by the way he hid it that he knew that it was wrong, and he knew he had to hide it.
Because he 100% like wrapped it in a towel, stuck it in like a gym bag.
Yeah.
So he was arrested in 2003 on those charges, but then, oh, poor baby. But then in 2004, those charges were dropped because of a lack of probable cause for the search warrants, which seems bananas to me. Like, obviously they had, I don't know, ACAB, but obviously they had probable cause.
It's a harsh double-edged sword because in situations like that, you're like, well, come on, get the fuck in there. Like, But like, if you change those laws, there's a lot of, unfortunately, because of our broken systems, a lot of innocent people will be victimized.
Yeah.
A lot of abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Ron, Kathy, there was a lot of debate throughout this case about the identities of the two people seen in the infamous sex tape. Prosecutors say it was R. Kelly and an underage girl. Well, there was testimony about whether the man in the tape has a mole on his back, as the singer does. In the end, however, jurors say they never even talked about the mole or whether it was Kelly on the tape. They say they simply lacked enough evidence to convict. When he left home this morning, R. Kelly had no idea when he'd be back. His fate was in the hands of jurors who could have sent him to prison for years. Instead, tonight, they set him free.
Word for the press, please!
He had a wave to the media and fans waiting for him. His burden lifted after being acquitted on all 14 counts of child pornography. It was a resounding victory for the superstar singer after a 6-year legal odyssey. The jury foreman tonight tells ABC 7's Ravi Baichwal the key to the case, the identity of the alleged underage girl on the videotape.
Was it R. Kelly on the tape? Really was secondary to whether or not we could, beyond a reasonable doubt, assume and confirm that it was the victim that the state said it was.
So like I said, those charges were dropped. But then again, in April of 2018, he was again accused of misconduct by a former partner who said that R. Kelly had intentionally infected her with an STI.
Jesus.
But obviously, R. Kelly categorically denied all claims and allegations.
Yeah, and I think in order to get that kind of charge, you have to have just had knowledge that you have an STD and then gone on to have sex anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then again, in May of 2018, the Time's Up Women of Color movement called for a boycott of his music and performances just because he's so gross. In response, his management said that R. Kelly supports the movement in principle, but targeting him was the attempted lynching of a black man who has made extraordinary contributions to our culture. Which seems like kind of a cop-out.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, because like, he's gross.
Yeah, you can make extraordinary contributions to culture and still be a shithead.
Yeah, exactly. And then on May 10th, 2018, Spotify decided to stop promoting or recommending music by R. Kelly. Spotify stated, I quote, "We don't censor content because of an artist or creator's behavior, but we want our editorial decisions, what we choose to program, to reflect our values." And then a couple days later, Apple Music and Pandora also said that they wouldn't be featuring or promoting any of his music.
Now, featuring or promoting, but they're still available on the store.
It's still there.
I think so. Let me look. I have Spotify.
Okay.
I have Apple Music.
Okay. Well. Yep.
There he is. There's.
Yep. There it is.
Yeah.
Right there. So yes, it's still on there. Verified today, August 11th, 2018.
And really, I mean, that's really a half-ass act. I mean, all that means is he's going to make $20 million instead of $30 million that year. I mean, oh my fucking God.
That's still too much money.
Yeah.
So if I have wet your whistle enough for more grossness, we are we are now on to the cult.
Yay.
So, there was a woman named that we'll call Jay. That's the mom. The mom's name was Jay.
Okay.
And she was super stoked that her 19-year-old daughter's music career was going to make a major leap forward because she had basically given her demos to R. Kelly.
And who wouldn't be stoked?
Oh, for sure. He's like a big name in music, even though he's super problematic. Like, everyone still knows who he is. Jay was quoted, when we got to go backstage with R. Kelly, we stayed there for over 2 hours, one-on-one with just me and my daughter and him. We went back to talk about the music. He listened to her CD, he was going to help her with her CD, and I was really impressed with him at first because I've always been an R. Kelly fan. Jay had said that R. Kelly met her daughter backstage at a concert in Atlanta, and pretty much soon after that, he invited her to fly out to another concert in California on his dime.
Ooh.
Yeah. She was quoted as saying, "In the back of our minds, we were thinking my daughter could be around him if I was with her." Mm-hmm. It didn't really hit home, even with the Elias situation. Now that I think about it, age ain't nothing but a number.
Yeah.
But you don't think about that. You grew up with that song. You like that song. Like, it's a catchy song.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of songs. A lot of people don't actually listen to the lyrics. You know, they're just something that goes along with the catchy tune.
Blurred lines.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's that song from like the 1950s that's rapey as fuck? About
I really can't stay.
Yes. That one.
Oh, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's lots.
Yeah.
Lots of really rapey songs.
Yeah.
So now it's 2 years later. I got this info from BuzzFeed News. 2 years later, Jay and her husband are like super desperate to get their kid home because she has basically been kidnapped into this sex cult.
Yeah.
The last time that they saw her was December 1st, 2016.
My name is Timothy Savage.
Tim, before you leave the microphone, though, can we ask you, it's a pretty serious charge to say that your daughter's being held against her will. How old is she, and what evidence do you have she's being held against her will?
My daughter is, right now, she's 21 at this time. This is my wife, Jonjelyn Savage.
Spell your name, please.
I'm Jonjelyn. It's spelled Jonjelyn. The house that we're standing in front of today is the first time I've been at this location. But through the sources of Cheryl Mack, which was his assistant that gave me information about the guest house, where he had rooms set up for like a hotel for the girls to stay in. And he also had a black room where they do different acts, sexual acts in, and then he had the separate rooms, 3 separate rooms, total 4 rooms in his house, which they have it all identical set up. My daughter's severely brainwashed. She's brainwashed to the point where she says anything that he asks her to say. She's not the same Jocelyn that we knew when we met. So we just want him to release her and let her go on with her life, because he's affected too many young girls over the years. And I just wanted her home and to try to get her rehabilitated to the Jocelyn that we know and miss. Thank you.
I will answer a couple questions if you have questions. So I want to take your question first. What question do you have, and what would you like for me to answer?
You already answered how old your daughter is. She's 21, so she is of age. Again, the charge you make is that she's being held against her will. What evidence of that do you have, other than perhaps some of the conversations you've had where she sounded a little off?
Well, if you have cultured and looked at where it's Stockholm Syndrome. That's what my daughter has right now.
Hi, this is Joycelyn Savage, and I would like to direct this message to my family, but especially my dad. Dad, you know everything that's going on with the media and the internet, and what you have done is a complete disaster, and you need to stop. Because right now, I am fed up with everything you are doing. You're embarrassing me and the whole entire family. I am happy where I'm at and the people that I'm around, and it's getting out of hand, seriously. Because honestly, you know the situation that had happened that night when I went to meet R. Kelly. So I would like for you, matter of fact, I would love for you to stop what you're doing, because this is I can't believe you even went this far. I love you to death, but I need you to understand me. Please stop what you're doing. Please.
There are 3 former members of Kelly's inner circle whose names are Cheryl Mack, Kitty Jones, and Asante McGee.
Jesus.
So they they provided some info on this BuzzFeed article about how R. Kelly was in control of every aspect of their life. He told them when to sleep, when to eat, when to bathe, and how to engage in sex.
Jesus. I mean, and this seems to be just manipulation.
Yeah. It seems like this woman, like the 19-year-old girl, was manipulated into thinking that R. Kelly would help further her music career, when in fact he basically just like stole her and put her in one of his houses.
Jeez. It's the same shit as Harvey Weinstein. Like they hold the door open to potential success and fame, and they just use it to victimize women. They use it just to tempt people into their little trap.
Yeah, exactly. Cheryl Mack, she worked as R. Kelly's personal assistant for a year and a half, was also quoted as saying, she said, "You have to ask for food, you have to ask to use the bathroom. Kelly is a master at mind control. He is a puppet master." So that's scary as hell.
Yes.
I mentioned before Jones and McGee, they were kind of members of his inner circle, and they both lived with R. Kelly and had sexual relationships with the star. R. Kelly actually controlled their phone and social media use while they were under his roof, and they weren't allowed to take any pictures with him.
So just pure isolation.
Yeah, or even any of the rooms in the house where they were living. According to them, there was a 31-year-old den mother who trained newcomers on how Kelly liked to be pleasured sexually. That's a direct quote from the BuzzFeed article, which is super gross. Mac, Jones, and McGee claim that women who live with Kelly, who he calls his babies, are required to call him daddy and must ask his permission to even like leave the recording studio or their assigned rooms.
So he just wants them to be
completely under his thumb.
Just automaton step for wives.
Yeah, and just like at his beck and call when it comes to sex.
And like when you desire something like that, like you're not desiring a person.
No,
you know?
You're desiring like a part.
Yeah, you're desiring basically just an obedient object.
Yeah, exactly. And R. Kelly also filmed his sexual activities and shows it to other men inside his social circle. So he basically makes his own porn.
Yeah.
Let me guess, without consent of the partner.
Oh, they don't need to give consent because they're his slaves, right?
Yeah.
They're just objects.
And I'm sure that makes him feel great just to be exposed just unwillingly.
Mm-hmm. Yuck. So if any of the women break any of his rules, like some of his rules, the women have to dress in jogging suits because he wants their bodies to be covered up so no one else can look at them. When other men were in the same room, he made the girls turn around and face the wall so that no other men could look at them. These rules are pretty stupid. Like,
yeah, I guess I'm comparing it to my episode because like I read a bunch about it, but it's just like the Harvey Weinstein bullshit. They're surrounded by a sea of enablers.
Yeah.
And any of these people could have come forward and helped out. Like there had to be, lawyers and producers and IT people and other artists that have all seen this shit and have just stayed silent.
Yeah, exactly. So if they break his rules, he punishes them physically and verbally. For example, I'm quoting this from the BuzzFeed article, Jones claimed that Kelly had held her against a tree and slapped her outside of a Subway sandwich shop because she'd been too friendly with the male cashier there.
Horrifying.
Yeah,
right?
How dare she be polite to a service worker?
Mm-hmm. But the law says that consenting adults may take part in any relationship, no matter how, non-traditional they are.
Yeah.
As long as welfare checks are okay, there's not really much that the cops can do. So they did welfare checks on the women, and they were all like, no, we're fine. It's all good.
Yeah.
Bye. So there's like not much that they could do about it.
And like welfare checks, like people think that it's a huge inspection, but the thing is, it's only a huge inspection if the person who's called on lets it. So they could easily, instead of being inspected for wounds and being inspected for abuse, they could just easily say, no, I'm fine, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, just like knock on the door. Hey, you good? Yep, fine, bye.
Yeah, sometimes it's literally just a, oh, you're still alive check.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like all the women that he has in his inner circle or his house or whatever, they're all of legal age, of consent, despite all of the allegations of sexual misconduct with kids and like the pornography charges and stuff. Like he's obviously, for lack of a better term, I feel gross saying this, he's smartened up and picked older women, still babies as far as I'm concerned, because these women are all like 18, 19, 20.
Yeah. I don't think he did that for any moral reasons, though. He did that out of pure self-protection.
Yeah, exactly. He still wanted to have his entourage and his like willing harem of women just there for his personal pleasure.
Well, yeah, like a moral person would go like, I don't want to do this because it'll cause harm, but he's doing it because I don't want to do this because I do not want the consequences.
Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Back in 2008, when he was acquitted of the 14 charges of making child porn, the trial actually excluded claims that were made by the girls and their parents that alleged that he had regularly abused his position of power and influence and fame and whatever to pursue these illegal sexual relationships with these like little babies, these 14-year-old girls.
Why did they exclude that testimony?
I don't know. The girls signed non-disclosure agreements.
Oh.
After like I guess he paid them and they signed non-disclosure agreements so that they couldn't bring it into the court trial. So that's why.
Oh really? I didn't think non-disclosure agreement would cover criminal activities, but I am not a lawyer. I know nothing.
I'm not a lawyer either. Call me out if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and unfortunately, and we'll probably dive into this in the future, weaknesses in the law. And I know I have an episode coming up about that, but a lot of stuff is based upon the discretion of people who may not be logical or may not be unbiased. Mm-hmm. And even though the law says one thing, there's still a lot of room for interpretation, and within that interpretation, logical people can ruin things.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, basically these women were wooed with promises of having their records or whatever heard by record producers and people in the industry, but they were ultimately recruited into this super sketchy situation with R. Kelly.
And they're living in one of the most expensive to live areas in the country. They don't have jobs. They don't have an income. They don't...
they're completely dependent on him for all their needs.
So not only are they still holding on to the hope of R. Kelly saying, one day I'll make you big, but they're unable to escape that situation. They literally don't have enough money to escape that situation. It's almost an impossible problem to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the law hasn't really caught up to the psychology of cults, but I think somebody who has been thoroughly brainwashed and put in an inescapable situation cannot consent.
No.
Yeah.
I am 100% with you with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And the women were even told, like, what color to dye their hair, because R. Kelly liked blonde hair, so they basically had to cut their hair and dye it blonde. The women were being so controlled that their parents weren't able to contact them. Like, R. Kelly monitored their text messages and wouldn't let them contact their parents. Everything was forwarded to voicemail if they called.
And we already know that he uses, like, physical and emotional punishments if they say anything bad about him, so they dare not communicate this to any of their relatives.
Oh, of course not, because they're completely and 100% trapped.
Yeah.
So there are parents that are trying to get their girls back. It's tough because these women are all of the age of consent. And there, like I said, there's not much that the police can do about consenting adults. Like, if the women say that they're consenting, there's not much. The police don't have any proof otherwise, except for the word of these parents. But if they hear from the girls, like, no, I'm fine. I love R. Kelly. He's my boyfriend. You know? So it's been really slow going.
Yeah. That's true for a lot of abusive relationships.
Oh, for sure. This is like a how-to on how to do an abusive relationship, like this whole situation, except there's like a harem of women instead of just one woman.
Yeah. Well, it's so common that it's become a cliche in like sitcoms and stuff. Like if somebody has a black eye, like, oh, I just walked into a door, or oh, I just fell down the stairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So these women have had to miss funerals, weddings, birthdays of their family just because R. Kelly doesn't want them to leave.
Well, you can't risk them having alone time with loved ones. They may tell secrets.
Yeah, exactly. It's really frustrating for the families. He seems like a super awesome and nice guy, right?
Absolutely your prerogative. If you ever want to leave, you can certainly leave.
Yeah,
Another thing, thank you.
If the next question is something negative out of your mouth, with all due respect, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Okay, a couple of things. One, there's going to be no negativity. I'm just asking you questions.
Well, I know the difference in between a negative
questions.
question and a positive one. So if I think it's negative, I'm going to walk.
I'm not going to ask you questions.
With all due respect to all of you guys here.
I won't
know
ask
you got a job to
questions
do.
that are framed in a specific
I know
way,
this is
one
your
way or
job.
another. I'm asking, yeah.
I understand this is your job.
So let's talk about your lyrics for a moment, okay? So would you say that you have a healthy relationship with sex? Sex is mentioned frequently in your lyrics. In many of the songs you talk about having sex with women, multiple women. Would you say that you have a healthy relationship with sex and that is reflected musically?
I would have to say this. I did not come here to get interrogated. I didn't come here for a deposition. You know what a deposition is?
I'm very aware of what a deposition is. I'm asking you about your music.
With me when
I asked about your music.
say that this sounds sort of like a deposition.
I think it may be the accent, but no, I'm asking you specifically about your music.
I didn't even hear your accent. I only hear your English.
It's my. I'm
not
asking you
paying
about
attention to your accent.
I'm asking.
I'm only paying attention to the English that comes out of your mouth.
I'm asking you about your music
not a
and your
deposition.
lyrics.
This is a deposition. This is not about R. Kelly. This is not about music. This is not about someone who works hard on his music who has an album out. This is about trying to interrogate me, and this is about, disrespect. And I'm going to sit here.
Mr. Kelly, I don't believe I'm
disrespected.
Mr. Kelly, I don't believe I'm disrespecting you. I asked you a very specific question about your lyrics.
Your intelligence, not mine.
I asked you a very specific question about your music and your lyrics.
Well, if you don't think you're disrespecting me, then that's just, like I say, the level of your intelligence, not mine.
Okay.
But I respect it.
I'm going to ask about
I respect that you have a job.
I'm going to just go to a comment
from... Do you drink?
Do I drink?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you get drunk?
Yeah.
You fall all over and not know it yet?
I don't understand the line of questioning, but no.
I see, exactly. But it ain't positive, is it? It has nothing to do with your job, does it?
But I'm asking you specifically about your music and your lyrics. That has very much about your job.
My personal life, or
which has started started with all due respect. Actually, no, this is a great point. No, it is. Your personal life has started to interfere with the way that people consume your lyrics.
Right,
I sent you some messages there about that.
You're here to get ratings, and I understand it. I respect that.
No,
but you won't be getting them off me if you're going to interrogate me.
I'm not interrogating you.
Talk about something positive.
Let's bring in
I'm in New York. I'm having a great time. I'm finna go visit some friends. I'm finna do some more business. I'm finna have a great time. I didn't come here for you to spoil that.
One more question. You're here to promote your album.
I have one more question.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
What do you say to the multiple fans? The many fans who are watching and listening that say there have been multiple accusations against you, against young women in Chicago, and they are concerned about your past, and that's impacting them from purchasing your music sales.
I love them all. It doesn't matter who they are. If they hate me, they love me, they want to destroy me, whatever, I love them all. And I love you too.
You don't need to give me any of your love, sir.
I love everybody.
You really don't need to give me your love. I just wanted to ask the question, what do you say to the... What do you say to the fans, your fans who don't want to buy your music?
I'm not going to allow you to do that, but I love you. I love my fans.
Okay, I have a video question for you from a fan.
You don't have no video questions for me because this interview is over.
Okay, well, Mr. K, I thank you very much for coming to our post. I'm not answering my questions,
thank you so much.
But thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You don't have to comment on my appearance, sir.
So I found an article that's dated July 11th, 2018, and I will just read it verbatim. As more news stories about R. Kelly's troubling behavior comes to the surface, BuzzFeed is teaming up with Hulu to release a documentary about the singer's history of alleged sexual abuse. According to Vanity Fair, the unnamed project is in conjunction with the rollout of TV productions from the outlet this year. This documentary will be based on Jim DeRogatis' report on the singer's alleged sexual cult, which is the BuzzFeed article where I got most of my information for this.
I guess it's good that it's getting some signal boosting.
Mm-hmm. So his story helped break another layer in R. Kelly's long-lasting accusations of preying on minors and young women. The veteran journalist and rock critic has covered allegations around the singer for 17 years, starting with his piece with former Sun Times legal affairs reporter Abdon Palish in 2002 about Kelly's infamous sex tape with a 15-year-old girl. That's the P1. BuzzFeed's vice president of news and programming, Shani Hilton, didn't speak on the specifics of the documentary, but explained the brand's decision to venture into programming instead of quick digital video content. It just seemed obvious that we should be more in the show space, she said. But we also really wanted to do things that felt premium and high level and not just social video. Yeah, so that's basically it.
Yeah.
It's just a whole bunch of real gross stuff, and I will keep my eye on this story, and I'll do an update if I see anything else.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's one that not many people know about it. I remember kind of hearing whisperings about it when R. Kelly did that song with Lady Gaga.
Oh, yeah.
I remember kind of hearing that, being like, Lady Gaga, you're smarter than that. Why are you with this garbage human?
Well, especially since Lady Gaga seems to want to connect a progressive message with her music, and yet she teams up with somebody like R. Kelly.
Maybe she was I don't remember when that song was out, but maybe she was in her edgy phase, and she was just whatever. This controversy will be good for my brand.
Yeah.
Ew.
In this situation, R. Kelly is manipulating them and controlling their lives against their will.
Right.
And is using manipulation tactics to keep them...
And brainwash them.
And financial control, too.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure every penny has to come from him. He wouldn't allow them to have jobs.
No, he doesn't.
I don't know. It's frustrating because he's not in a jail cell.
Even with all these allegations, he married Aliyah when she was 15. He had that sex tape with a 15.
Really should have sunk him right then and there. That's disgusting.
Yeah, but apparently it didn't. And then now with this whole weird sex cult thing.
Yeah, and he goes as far to hire someone to teach them and to bring them to studios and bring them on tour. He doesn't seem to be very apt at hiding it very much.
No.
He's pretty comfortable that his circle of people will keep the word for him.
Yeah, and cover his ass.
I don't know.
Shitty.
Letting him get away with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's really scary, and I hate it.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess the only hope is hopefully in the age of Me Too, maybe with that thing coming out on Hulu, and maybe with the tiny signal boost our podcast will kick in, maybe Me Too will catch up to R. Kelly, and maybe he'll see the inside of a cell block like he should.
I hope so.
Yeah, it would be nice to have Me Too catched up with anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, Time's Up is a great movement, but it needs to be taken more literally.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Let's have a happy song at the end of this.
I'm going to get one of those cheery, phonograph tunes from the 1920s. Those are always nice and jittery.
I swear, Sage, your episodes, I had to be drunk to listen to one, and the other one I couldn't have any children in the house.
Yeah, these are really depressing shit you're picking.
I know, I can't help it.
It's okay, next episode will be good.
It's okay. Yeah. I think it's worth going into, because this guy is still making records and making money, and fuck him.
He's still just a gajillionaire, and this kind of stuff is starting to come to the light, and I'm not sure what other, obviously Hulu and BuzzFeed are doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's good, but what more can we do about this? That's kind of why I wanted to do this episode, to help bring light to it, because I hadn't really heard much about it.
Yeah, Val, if you have any sway amongst the other elder gods, could you get them to affect their influence and, strike vengeance down upon R. Kelly? Some old school biblical shit.
I, Valhalla, sentence R. Kelly to have his useless skin tag of a dick and balls nailed to a table and then get Spartan kicked in the chest by Roman Reigns.
Yeah, let's smite him.
Yeah, praise be to Val.
Praise be to Val.
Peace be upon her.
Yes.
All right, anyway, That was a really cheerful episode. For Occultae Veritatis podcast, I'm Sage Murray.
Leon Filger.
Ooh, Gallifrey.
And joining us in studio,
it's Tira and Val. We'll call her Valeria.
Little baby Valeria.
Yeah, little baby Valeria.
Yes.
All right. I love you and sorry.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Bye.
Have a better day.
Soul to cheer me, and I'm so forlorn. No one to hear my cries and sympathize. Nobody knows but my pillow and me. Nobody knows half the troubles I it's my delusion. Life is not a sweet song. It's my conclusion that the whole entire world is wrong times when I'm smiling, when I ought to be sighing, should be crying. For a little bit of sympathy, lonesome me. I'm trying to make them believe everything is satisfying. Oh, nobody knows but my pillow and me. Nobody knows but my pillow and me. Nobody knows half the troubles I see. It's my delusion. Life is not a sweet song. It's my conclusion that the whole entire world is wrong times when I'm smiling, when I ought to be sighing, should be crying. For a little bit of sympathy, lonesome me. I'm trying to make them believe everything is satisfying. Oh, nobody knows but my pillow and me.
And thank you to Lizzie Miles and her song My Pillow and Me, a recovered phonograph music hit. Also, I know a lot of our listeners are from Saskatoon because that's where we live and that's where we leave business cards all over the fucking place. So if you are in Saskatoon, September 15th and 16th of 2018, you should stop by the Saskatoon Entertainment Expo. It's our version of a little Comic-Con type thingy. And while you're there, stop by table 1011 and visit our friend Gerard. Now, Gerard, he paints your favorite heroes and villains in a style that I would describe as almost stark minimalism mixed with gross realism. You have to see it to be sure. It's really cool stuff. You'll want at least one of them. And if you mention this podcast while you're at that table, he'll give you $5 off on your purchase. So that's September 15th and 16th, visit our friend Gerard for some superhero and supervillain portraits and art. And if you mention this podcast, he'll give you $5 off your purchase. So visit him at table 1011. Otherwise, we record these after shows once every 3 weeks. So next week, if you are a Patreon, you will hear your name on the podcast. You know, since we get together only every 3 weeks, sometimes we only record Patreons once a month. But to be hell, we're going to give you guys credits because you guys are propping us up and supporting us and improving the show with every single day. And we can't help but love you for that. So with the rest of the hosts, see you next after show, and we'll read out some new patrons.